The first time we met Tom was in Perth, and I think it was like 2014 or 2015. And we were just kids who had no idea what we were doing. I don't know how we even got on this festival.
We were some of the only electronic acts on that festival. I think we just kind of gravitated towards each other.
We didn't really think about collaboration for a long time. We just ended up FaceTiming each other a lot as friends. And so we started showing each other music all the time, giving each other notes.
They were writing A Moment Apart and I was writing my debut album. So we kind of became a sounding board for each other, where most days we were trading ideas and tearing them apart. I remember I was on a tour bus in the US. I was over there for a couple of months and I was continuously sending the guys music. And at one point it was just a sound. It was this long distorted horn sound. And they asked me to send it over to them. And I sent it over and then it came back with drums and it was a very early demo of Tense.
Tense was the first song we started together. And I remember the bass line that's kind of throughout it, the bwah, 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 bwah. That was made on a plane with headphones on my keyboard, and I was just tapping the keyboard, and I was trying to make a really aggressive bass line, so I was just slamming my hand really loudly, and the stewardess walked over and told me to stop typing so loud. And I remember that was the beginning of that song.
The conversation was kind of like, oh, we should keep doing this. Like, we should keep sending stuff and working on it. This is fun.
We thought we were going to maybe collaborate on a song. And then it became 2 songs. Then it became 3 songs. And then it became like the thing that we got to do when we weren't on tour. And then we decided, okay, we're going to be in Australia for the Moment Apart tour. Why don't we just stay a couple days after and we'll all get a house together in the middle of nowhere and just make some music and see what happens.
My criteria for searching was to find somewhere with no neighbors where we could just make music at any hours and not, worry about waking anyone up or getting a knock on the door. So we found this abandoned kind of farmhousey thing that was in somewhere called the Kangaroo Valley. No neighbors to the point of it being creepy. We didn't see another soul for the whole time we were there.
This is like the last place that you'd expect people to write a Dark House album.
We wrote a track a day, I believe, for 6 or 7 days.
Look, we got some of these cool ideas, some of these cool tracks. Like, how are we gonna make it into something, and how do we kind of portray it as, we didn't want it to be one of the individual projects, like Golden Features featuring ODESZA or ODESZA featuring Golden Features, anything like that. We really found out it needed its own thing.
For the first time, we took a very analog approach where a majority of all the sounds are built on analog machines.
When you're dealing with software, it's computer algorithms. Try as you might, they're perfect, and music isn't supposed to be perfect. So once you change to a vintage synth, which was built in the 80s and survived longer than I have on this planet, there's some flaws in it.
We wanted to do a lot of this stuff analog, so we were sending a lot of synths and modular instruments into blown out speakers and pedals, and then bouncing them and reprinting them and bouncing them and reprinting them with different distortion and saturation, compression.
The whole album, in a way, was kind of an experiment around and us pushing those envelopes with pedals and seeing what comes out.
When we ended up making Contact, that was the whole goal. How do we make the most distorted dance song? Everything's distorted in that song. The bass line. vocal. And that's kind of the goal on some of these songs. We just wanted to break free of what was expected of us.
I think the big one, the overarching thing, was kind of perseverance through struggle. It's also very fitting for the year that we're in now. It's that idea that, you know, everyone's going through things, whether they be physical, you know, relationship, whether they be emotional, whatever they are. And we're all trying to come out the other end.
This music was our therapy to all those things. Almost like our way of pushing through our problems were making these songs together. They gave us kind of goals and hope. That's where the theme came out of it. I think we all felt like this was the thing that was helping us push through.
In those moments, there's moments where you got to battle and you got to push yourself, and you don't know how it's going to end. But you got to keep going and you got to keep stepping up. And I think that was captured in a lot of this music. You got to keep driving, you got to keep fighting, you got to keep pushing yourself as much as possible. And I think that was one of the main themes we kept trying to return to and capture that energy within these tracks.
Yeah, each song kind of has a different crux. You know, Keep Moving, there was that initial bass sound that came in, kind of marching bass sound. Mutual friend of all of ours, actually. He was over at my place and I was trying to justify having bought this new drum machine. We started making sounds on it, and so I recorded it. It must have been 16 to 30 seconds of music. I just sat on my computer and I was like, oh, that was a fun thing. Nothing will come of it. And then I played it for Harrison one day because I think he was playing me all this incredible new music and I didn't have shit to show him. So I was like, oh, listen to this. And he was like, whoa, like, send that over. So I sent it over and he and Clay waved a black magic wand over the whole thing. All of a sudden, it had this new life.
Okay, blackout.
It's maybe one of the most aggressive songs on the record, so it feels like the going to battle song and the psyching yourself up and preparing for war. And so we tried really hard to make that tension and release make sense to a war, a battle, a fight. And that's why I think there's 3 drops. That's also like a thing in boxing is it's a lot of dancing around each other and then a couple striking moments that are insane and intense. All it takes is one punch and you're out.
Half a minute to go in round 1.
That was a big reason why we sampled actual marching to put into the song. You have to amp yourself up to go into battle with whatever it is.
Hitting into the rope, working on it, but Hearns uppercutting again.
I don't know if you'd say lyrics, but like maybe the spoken word pieces inside of it are meant to be someone talking to themselves during a fight, about the fight.
I can see how it moves. Don't be afraid.
It's kind of your inner dialogue that you would have with yourself, trying to keep yourself calm and moving forward in whatever you're facing.
That was an entire fight accomplishing 3 words of stuff.
How did Heart Attack start? I don't even know. I have to think about that.
That one I remember, I went over to Harrison's place. He just started working on music and came up with this little idea.
It was this really basic thing, but I remember we were just really in love with the rhythm of it all.
I had this cool bass line on it, but it was a bit digital. When I was back home, I had this JUNO 106 and it had broken, and I was kicking myself. I was like, this is the perfect synth for this. I know this would nail this bass line, but it's broken. And for some reason, the way that it was broken, it was creating this horrible noise that sat perfectly into that sound. As I was finishing up recording some of the last passes of the bass line, the thing was like fading out. You could barely hear it anymore. But it was like the last thing that this instrument spat out before it died. And that bass line is one of my favorite things on the record. It's so swung and simple, but so kind of defined. Like when that bass line hits, you know it's that song, you know? And it was like this last gift from a dying piece of equipment.
It was about a year ago that they got in touch with me to say, do you want to write something? Just totally out of the blue. And I was like, absolutely, of course. They sent over the instrumental, I fell in love with that, and then I threw down a rough sketch of some improvised melodies and sent that back to them, and they chopped that up, and that's how Heart Attack started.
She came back with a bunch of different melody ideas. Her tone and her delivery was so unique.
When I come up with initial ideas, I usually sing them in my own little language of vowel sounds that sound a bit like words, but aren't words. And I sent it to the guys, and they chopped it into a bit more of a structure from my improvised ramblings. When they sent it back to me, the words just started to emerge from it. They just kind of wrote themselves.
I've been patient, but I won't follow, 'cause I don't wanna be your friend. What does it matter in the end?
I haven't met the guys, and we've never been in the studio together, but ultimately we've been able to make music on 3 different continents. And then suddenly to see other people connect with it and interpret it in their own way, that's always my favorite part.
So we had a pretty good sense of what the album was going to be, and obviously felt that we needed some more vocal energy. We had some cool instrumentals, but it just wasn't balanced. We had a real simple loop, just some basic chords and a drum beat that we ended up showing a lot.
We were just cracking jokes, man. Like we just hit it off really well. We had a bunch of beers, so we just vibing and hanging out. The chorus melody happened like just really organically. The lyrics kind of just found themselves.
I know you've been losing sleep at night, even though you say you're satisfied. You lie.
It's crazy to watch him work. I can only listen to a loop for a certain amount of time. Glon had an incredible ability to just kind of have that on a repeat and just keep working. We took lunch breaks and he would be in the booth with the food, still working, which is incredible to see.
In hindsight, it's funny to like go back and think about something that's really organic and just happened to come together. It just feels like, it's like riding a bike, down a road to a destination. You know where you want to go. And maybe there were a couple things that you had to avoid on the way, but it was so seamless and effortless, you barely even think about it,
Finding the supporting elements in a track and really developing those was something we had done in the past, but this we kind of really took to the next level. Could be little bits of vinyl texture, bursts of noise, to harp leads, to little vocal shots, Just little things that pop in and out of the track, and really spending time developing some little parts of sound that kind of fill these spaces and gaps in the final product was something we really focused on.
We had been making pretty heavy dance music all day, and we were just winding down and wanted to make something different. We love darker 80s music, and so we were just kind of goofing around with those ideas. And we had a couple glasses of wine. I started kind of humming something to myself, and Tom was like, "You try to sing into the mic." And I've never really sung on anything, so I was pretty nervous to do it.
It all comes down.
And then as we started trying to write the next verse, so we were trying different ideas out, and then Tom started trying to sing into the mic. And that's why he sings the very last verse.
It's all your fault and all this. Did all I could to hold this.
And then what's so cool is the accident of them playing over each other working. It was never planned that way, but they just both melodically don't get in the way of each other.
And near the end of the writing process, we needed something and kind of bring the whole thing together.
For a really long time, we have all been big fans of Teed. Every time we heard his vocals, they felt so unique and strong and vulnerable all at once.
They invited me to the studio and they sort of explained to me a little bit about the project. We started with like just pulling a MIDI keyboard into the room so I could find my way around the chords. And then we laid down a verse and a chorus and stacked it.
Take a step forward. Lost in a darkness. Trust yourself, let go. And breathe in a lush air.
When we got into the chorus and we started looping the chorus, and I was stacking, doing harmonies on the Never Give It Up lines. And I remember at that point I was like, there's an emotional thing here that might work.
See yourself from there.
I mean, that's something that I struggle with myself. I think everybody does, but certainly as a musician, self-doubt is just slapping you in the face all day long. Why is there so much doubt? At its root, that's fear of failure, fear of not being good enough, fear of not being loved. So of course we're all struggling to sort of feel worthy a lot of the time. You know, the more you acknowledge self-doubt, the less powerful it is in you. I'd rather just go forward and fail than wait and never even try.
Never give it up. save yourself from doubt.
That's the thing with all of this is like there are some very Golden Features moments on the record and there are some very ODESZA moments on the record. I think you would be surprised at who did some of them. Those guys would send me some stuff back and it sounded more like me than I do, you know, and that there were these big chordal, you know, epic ODESZA moments that came from me. And it's like, I think that was kind of the thing is we were feeding off each other. Very much was like we were acting like a band. That for me was the magic of all of it.
I think a lot of people assume about us what we're supposed to be like as people or as musicians because of the things we've made so far. And that makes sense. That's how it works. But what is exciting to us is experimenting and trying new things. I mean, I sang on a song, tried to make a distorted house song, made a 7.5 minute long song. We did a lot of things we'd never done before. So I think that was a big reason why if we're going to talk perseverance as a theme, then that's kind of what you hope you can do. Pushing through pain and difficulty, hold your own against whatever you may be facing. And the mental space you have to get to go to war with yourself. That's your fighting spirit.